Countdown once again. Hello, welcome once again to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I am your host, Willie Bragg, and I hope you're all doing well. I, as you probably know, I think a lot about politics. In fact, I wake up, I consume it first thing. I think about it when I go online. I think about it when I do anything. I go out, do whatever, run my errands. I think about it. I think about it while I'm at work. I think about it everywhere I go. I eat it, I sleep it, I consume it, I engulf myself in it. I basically am news event hungry, historical events hungry, political campaign hungry. I just love politics. So when one presidential election is over, or a midterm is over, or whatever election is over, I'm thinking about what's going to go on in the next one, and where can you learn from your previous mistakes. So that's just how I operate. So, you know, Eugene Debs is a big inspiration for a lot of my politics from the previous century, like in the early part of the previous century. And today, I think that the Eugene Debs tradition pretty much lives strong with Bernie Sanders. I do think he is the modern Eugene Debs of our modern age. He is. I mean, and I thought about it. I'm like, what they did to him in 2016, 2020. And I see nobody, or I thought I saw nobody on the horizon. For the longest time, I was thinking, I saw nobody on the horizon that could take Bernie's place. You know, the tradition, the tradition of Bernie Sanders and Norman Thomas. We used to say Michael Harrington, and I'm still willing to say Michael Harrington. A lot of people don't know who Michael Harrington was. He was supposed to be the successor to Eugene Debs and Norman Thomas. In a lot of ways, he is, but he did not run for president. And I know that there's more to politics than the presidency, and so. There is. There's more to the politics than the American presidency. But I want to mention that I thought about it, and I'm like, well, why the hell not? We need, we need Cornel West. Why not? Cornel West could be the successor to Eugene Debs, Norman Thomas, Michael Harrington, Bernie Sanders. And I just think that maybe Wall was well and due. And we all know a lot of us know who Cornel West is. And what I want to do is for those who are newbies to this channel and not familiar, to get familiar with Cornel West, because I think he will make an awesome president.
Brother Bernie's calling for a political revolution. Now, we need more than that. But he's calling for a political revolution in terms of getting big money out of politics, in terms of breaking up the banks, in terms of free education and single-payer health care. Now, given how far America's moved to the right, that makes Bernie Sanders look as if he's damn near communist in the eyes of many of our fellow citizens. But all that is, of course, is just social democratic policies that ought to be commonsensical when you got 1% of the population owning 42% of the wealth, when you got 40% of children of color living in poverty, when you got levels of massive unemployment and underemployment, when you got decrepit educational systems generating soul murder every day in the lives of precious poor children, and when you got indecent housing and infrastructure collapsing. That's just social democratic policy. So his political revolution is actually still reformist, but he's using the language of revolution that I like very much as a revolutionary Christian, because I think things need to just turn around and be turned over. So that on the one hand, that's a nice move in the right direction. On the other hand, we have to analyze precisely what he means by the term. Last night, for example, they talked about socialist. Bernie is a socialist. They hadn't really talked about him as a socialist that much. Now, every time they refer to him as socialist, what they mean is red baiting. But what is actually the case is he's a social democrat. A democratic socialist begins with a critique of the workplace, begins with workers' control vis-a-vis the bosses. It begins with an attempt to ensure that the voices of ordinary people are heard in every institution, not just electoral political context. Now, he has a rich history of the democratic socialists, and that's wonderful. It's unprecedented in some ways. We got to go back to Norman Thomas and Eugene Debs for that. Or Martin Luther King Jr., of course, who understood himself as a democratic socialist. But I think it's a sign of hope. That's why I'm critically supporting my dear Bernie Sanders. I'm going to push him as far as I can because of the decadence of the electoral political system we find ourselves in. When you're dealing with legalized bribery and normalized corruption, which is basically what American politics has become, and you get somebody with integrity, because at least he's got integrity. That's very important, as I mentioned before. Just sheer honesty. I mean, everybody's wondering, God, he treated Hillary Clinton like a human being. That is so extraordinary. Oh, wow. He's just a decent Brooklyn Jewish brother. I mean, hey, that's fine. That's fine. But we got to put a lot of pressure on Brother Bernie in regard to foreign policy, in regard to empire, in terms of workplace democracy, and a lot of other things, those of us who are democratic socialists. But at the same time, we ought to make sure that that he's treated fairly, because I think he's been marginalized and in some ways mistreated by the corporate media.
Well, you know, thing about it is that Cornel West, as usual, is correct that he's been incredibly marginalized and all of that. But you know, but this whole thing about socialism, I mean, one of the reasons I think that this socialism thing is worth venturing with regard to Cornel West is what I saw a few moments ago. And let me find this here. Yes, let's see. I want to show you this as well. Because I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson, but if what he did in a conversation to Tucker Carlson, if he could get Tucker Carlson on board, you know, I mean, that's, you know, if he can make Tucker Carlson's favor socialism with a few words, I think that a lot's been achieved, and that's my point right there. This doesn't mean I like Tucker Carlson. I'm just saying that I'm trying to find the video. I saw the video earlier. It was a 28-second video and really good. And I don't know why I can't find it. It was actually very, very good. Let's see here. Oh, good Lord. Because I actually saw the video. I was really impressed what he did in 28 seconds. Damn, I can't find it. Let's see. It's a socialist. Okay. Man, when I saw that video, I apologize. I'm trying to find that video. Let's see if I can find it. right here. It's 46 seconds, but this is a teachable moment.
Fundamental commitment is to the dignity of ordinary people and to make sure they can live lives of decency. So it's not an ism, no, brother. It's about decency. It's about fairness. It's about the accountability of the powerful vis-a-vis those who have less power. At the workplace, women dealing with the household, gays, lesbians, trans, black people, indigenous peoples, immigrants. How do we ensure that they are treated decently and that the powerful don't in any way manipulate, subjugate, and exploit them?
Well, I mean, if that's what democratic socialism is, then I'm basically on board. I do think that ordinary people, middle-class people, ought to have dignity. And I think that our current systems make it hard for them to have dignity. So I agree with all of that.
Okay. I believe in rehabilitation, and I know for a fact that Tucker Carlson isn't a socialist. And but I'm just saying that you see how effective. My point is, you see how effective Cornel West was. He actually almost convinced Tucker Carlson. That's the first step right there. I think that I think that Cornel West would be the person that could go and take on corporate America with this message of socialism. And the thing about it is that Cornel West is also not just in the tradition of Eugene Debs, Norman Thomas, Michael Harrington, and Bernie Sanders. He's also in that tradition of Martin Luther King and A. Philip Randolph and all the other great people dating back to Frederick Douglass when it comes to this whole notion of liberation for all people, but in particular for the African Americans and the African American experience here in the United States. And I think that he's a very healing figure in that regard, and he has the what it takes to be president. And and unfortunately he got canned from Harvard last year, and I've lost a lot of respect for Harvard University for the shabby treatment of Cornel West. But he's now at the Union for Theological Seminary in New York. So I want to also talk about a vice presidential candidate, potential vice presidential candidate, because that's also likewise very, very important. And that is Richard Wolff. I'm going to play the Richard Wolff because I want him to be the running mate under this ideal scenario. So let me do that, and I'll share a few words really quick about Richard Wolff.
Capitalism, I would argue, is not working. When the wages stopped rising in America after the 1970s, how did the American standard of living keep going up over the last 30 years when the wages didn't? We borrowed, just like them. But after a while, if your wages are flat, and the only way you can increase your standard of living is by borrowing, you don't need rocket science to understand eventually you'll have a level of debt you can't support on a flat wage. The American working class discovered that, which is why we're in a crisis now. And the Greeks discovered it, which is why they're in a crisis now. And the Spanish working class is discovering it. And here in this country, who lent to the working class for 30 years? The business community, who were making a lot of money because the wages were flat for 30 years, and so they cashed in. And they made a lot of money, which they turned around and lent to the workers. Who lent to the Greeks? The Germans, who made a lot of money because they kept their prices down and nobody could compete with them. And so they made a ton of money, which they lent to the poor countries to allow them to keep buying the stuff produced in the rich countries. But when it can't do it anymore, it's over. And here's the irony of ironies. Because the Greeks can't do anything anymore. They have no money. They can't keep their hospitals open. They can't buy anything. So first it's Greece, but already you see the effect on Germany. Germans sell to Spain, to Portugal, to Italy. People aren't buying. The Germans are discovering, oh my goodness, having taken everything to ourselves, having lent for a while to the others so we could keep selling to them, now we're not going to lend to them anymore because they can't pay us back. But if we don't lend to them, they can't buy from us. And if they don't buy from us, we're in the soup with them. The system self-destructs. Capitalism is not only, as I said at the beginning, not working for societies like Spain, Italy, Greece, and on and on. It isn't even working for the other ones. It's like the United States. The 1% takes it all, the 99% can't buy anything, and the 1% discover if the 99% can't buy anything, we're shafted. We need them. We need them to buy all this crap. We need them. We need them. The system doesn't work.
Okay. Oh gosh.
I'm Nick Nimitz, and I'm a StreamYard user. For the last 6 years, I've been live streaming consistently to YouTube and Facebook and
sorry about the capitalist commercial there that followed it. But yeah, StreamYards actually did make this possible for me to get other video streams in. Anyway, Richard Wolff is a professor of economics from the University of Massachusetts in Amherst from 1973 to 2008, and from 2008 on, today he works for the New School in New York City. He's a visiting professor, I believe. And Cornel West is a member of Democratic Socialists of America, and Richard Wolff is a Green Party member. Now, I don't care how they collaborate, and I don't care actually even which order. Cornel West leading the tickets, what I prefer, with Richard Wolff as the running mate. Can be Richard Wolff and Cornel West, but I think it makes more sense to have Cornel West than Richard Wolff because, Cornel West is more well known, and I think that he will have a lot of appeal over such a ticket. Now, I'm not going. I'm just throwing this out as a conjecture. We know that the Democratic Party will not have Cornel West on the ticket, much less a Cornel West Richard Wolff ticket. We just know that's not going to happen. But let's just say, as a hypothetical, if it did, I would gladly vote for such a ticket. I don't care if they're running as Democrats in that regard. They could run as Republicans. We know that's even less likely to happen than Cornel West Richard Wolff ticket as a Democrat. We know that Cornel West Richard Wolff ticket as a Republican is even less possible, and they're about equally impossible anyway. So it could be the Green Party. They could form a whole new Labor Party and say, here's what we got. Don't care how it's done, in what format. Or it could be generic independent. But that's what we need. Because we need to... think about it is that the Democratic Party is going to go for the right in November when the Republicans get them the ass kicking that they're going to get. It's a foregone conclusion with the gerrymandering around the country and a 50-50 Senate and you already got two Democrats. I mean, there's too many Democrats who are corporate Democrats, but there are two of them up there in the Senate right now that they're just absolutely horrible pieces of shit. Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. And the thing about it is that it's a foregone conclusion that there's going to be it's going to be a shift to the right again. It didn't have to happen that way. But, and Democrats don't know how to govern when they're in charge. There's just no way around it. They rather do nothing and then micromanage your lives in stupid ways. Still doesn't justify Kim Iverson for voting for Republican over justified frustration of a Democratic Party that continues to be garbage, because whether she realizes it or not, and I hope she realizes it, that the Republican Party, it will be a bigger pile of rubbish and garbage once she's in there. But they're both pretty damn bad. But anyway, back to Cornel West and Richard Wolff. They have the political program, and they have the economics that it takes to actually restore common sense to the American economy. And not just to restore the common sense, but to add more common sense, because I don't want to act like we were socialists at one time. But we were on our way with FDR's New Deal. And FDR's New Deal didn't come about because the Democratic Party were so awesome in the 1930s. It came about because of powerful movements. The trade union movement was very strong back in those days and very militant. You had a strong Socialist Party. You had a strong Communist Party. They were contentious with each other, but they were also on the same side on a lot of projects. You had smaller groups. You had Socialist Workers' Party in the late 1930s being found. You had the Socialist Labor Party, which had been around for decades. You had the Workman Circle. You had the Industrial Workers of the World. You had Jewish Labor Bund. You had all these groups. They were fighting the good fight for economic and social justice for all. And the left has been pretty much destroyed. I would say that by the 1960s, with COINTELPRO, counterintelligence programs of the FBI, that what was David McReynolds had said this in the past, that when he joined the Socialist Party in 1951, that there were about maybe 7 to 8, 9 organizations that were socialists or socialistic or communists or what have you. And then eventually, by the end of the 60s and on to the present, you have several thousands of groups of people, groups that are saying, my way is the correct way. I will contend that, in spite of what the Church Report said in the early 70s, that the COINTELPRO still exists. This is why you have pussy hat wearing morons out there that's campaigning against hurt feelings rather than fighting for single payer health care, and think that Hillary Clinton is the way to go. And because that genie's going to come out of the bottle again, and they're going to try to float Hillary Clinton in 2024. And we don't need that. The last thing we need is Hillary Clinton. And I'll tell you right up front, you can count me out when it comes to Hillary Clinton. You can count me out if Joe Biden. You can count me out when it comes to Beto O'Rourke or Pete Buttigieg. You can even count me out with Elizabeth Warren, the snake. Anyway, that was an old Bernie Bro reference from 2 years ago, just in case y'all didn't remember that. But I think that Cornel West is what we need at the moment, and Richard Wolff is what we need at the moment. And I can listen to Cornel West nonstop. I can also listen to Richard Wolff nonstop, because they talk absolute common sense that we need to restore previous common sense and to add more common sense to the previous common sense, what little bit of it we had as a society and as a nation. But anyway, chat line. Hot Retarded Chicks, I'm glad you're up. I don't know what part of the country you're living in. I don't know what time zone, but I'm glad you're up. And I love your videos, by the way. You do a good job with the work you do up there. And please, folks, find her and go ahead. Actually, what I'll do, once again, I will put Hot Retarded Chicks, I'll put her YouTube channel down, and please give her a sub, because she does some very good work, for damn sure. So if you all like what you heard, press like and comment any ways you disagree with what I have to say. As the First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are in fact the muckrakers of our time. Feel free also to share to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, and do what you can to support independent media. And until next time, keep that red flag flying. Wage that class struggle, and of course, go ahead and support freeing Julian Assange. You heard me. Free Julian Assange. Absolutely now. Take care.